Bradley,
Here.
Wageman,
Yes.
and I'm here. And then I will go ahead and identify by initial. I'd like each person on the line to identify themselves. Jay.
John Kolb, I'm present.
SW.
That's me, Steve Wagaman.
Okay, gotcha. MG.
Marcus Green, just listening in.
Okay. LV.
Oh, Linda Broussard and David Vickers. We have the property adjoining the project.
Okay, thank you. CA. N. Oh, there's Kyle Axel. Okay, it's KA.
Oh, yeah. KA, yes. Kyle Axtell here, Rice Creek.
And who was N?
Is that me by chance? Nick?
Nick, probably.
Yep.
Yep. This keeps moving around as we talk. So, LS.
That's me, Lewis Smith.
Okay. And what did we say MK was?
Matt Koshin, good morning.
Hey, Matt, good morning. Has everybody been identified that's listening in? Anybody not?
Chris Otterness.
Okay.
Jim Arch is here too.
Jim Arndt is here.
Okay, Jim Art, Chris Artemis.
And Teresa Stasica.
Okay, I think we have everybody then.
Patrick Hughes as well.
Oh, Patrick just jumped in.
And Julie McNeely.
McNeely, got it.
McNeely.
Anybody else? Anybody else out there? Okay, let the minutes reflect all members are present, and we will move to setting the agenda. Anybody like to change the date or have any additions to the agenda today?
President Preiner, staff would like to make one addition in regards to noticing public hearings for public drainage issues. I would like to put that right after item 1, action item. It's not an action item, but Council Kolb will be on the line, so if there's any discussion there, he may be of assistance.
Okay, anybody else? Anything else anybody wants to? If not, I'll need a motion, please, to set the agenda.
I'd move the agenda, Madam President. This is Marcy.
Second, Bradley.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call. Waller.
Here.
Wynant.
Here.
Bradley.
Yes.
Wageman.
Yes.
And Preiner, yes. And so we move forward, and that completes setting the agenda. So the first thing we need is the approval of the minutes from March 25th regular meeting.
Manager Wagaman, I move to approve the March 25th regular meeting minutes.
Manager Bradley, second.
We have a motion and a second, and again, roll call. Waller.
Yes.
Wynant.
Yes.
Bradley.
Yes.
Wageman.
Yes.
And Preiner, yes. Okay, thank you. The next thing is the March 27th emergency meeting.
This is Manager Wagaman to approve the March 27th, 2020 emergency meeting minutes.
Manager Bradley, seconds.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? And it'll be a roll call. Waller.
Here.
Wynant.
Yes.
Bradley.
Yes.
Wageman.
Yes.
And Preiner, yes. So it moves forward. Okay, the next thing we have is the permit applications.
President Preiner, Board of Managers. Today we have one permit application for consideration. This is application 20002 for the Nadu Acres. It is a single-family residential development project on 20th Avenue in Lino Lakes. As you'll see on page, the ER starts on page, sorry, here. 26 of the packet. And then on page 33, you can see the drainage map. It's worth noting that a portion of the project does drain west to a private ditch. And it's my understanding that attending the meeting is that adjoining landowner, Linda Vickers. And so I'd like to just acknowledge that she is here and then see if she has any questions regarding the application.
I do have a couple of items. Is this the appropriate time to speak?
Sure, let's go ahead.
Okay. We have concerns about the plan that's under consideration this morning. The property in question has drained across our farm for years, but of course the drainage was over the natural topography and over a wide area, broadcast over a wide area. We know that the original application, and I'm not sure if you saw that because it was withdrawn, included a 45-foot concrete culvert that the developer wanted to put onto our property. And after much consideration, we decided that we were not going to grant permission for that. We do see the changes that are in this new application that are under consideration, but we still have some questions about the drainage and the impact that it's going to have on our farm ground. And then finally, we want to make sure that this is a good long-range plan that is considering the future development and land drainage with our larger amount of acreage that will be put into development eventually. We own all of the land, the 40 acres to the west of the project is our property. And the point in question is on the northwest point of the project. So we have the first item we want you to consider is that you, on your item number 7, under your administrative part of the CAPROC items, addresses your concerns about utility easement and the permission of Excel to do this part for the smaller pond that's on the south side. But on the northwest corner is a large easement for Excel as well. It's a utility easement that's been granted over the property long before we were here. And so I'm hoping that your item number 7 would also apply to the flow that's going to go across their easement that's going to be concentrated in a small area. Clearly, it flowed across the easement before, but not in a concentrated area. And so I know that the majority of the project drains our direction. That lower pond comes up into the northwest pond and then comes onto us. And while we had that drainage, it was, again, over a lot of land. We have concerns that we'll experience potentially damming in the private ditch that everyone keeps referring to. That is a field ditch. It was never part of Judicial Ditch 47. It was a much smaller field ditch that the water is being directed to. And then I guess we feel very uncertain as to the future implications or potential problems regarding the maintenance of our private ditch in years to come. We feel that we potentially will have a need for cleaning that's not inexpensive, and more frequent cleaning because of the concentration there would be quite costly to us in the future. Let's see. Hang on. I have my note. So I just, it's been disconcerting to us to continually see the referral of west to a private ditch, like it's okay, sort of. And I did note on the plan that Patrick sent us that the overflow, I don't know, I'm not using the right terms, I'm not an engineer, but the overflow from that pond is going to be at 902. And when I look on the preliminary map that Patrick sent us, it said that the 100-year mark is, I think it was 907. So that's overflow, yeah, 907.5. That's an overflow onto us in much more common circumstances or regular circumstances than that 907 high water mark. So we just, every time it says it's flowing to our private ditch, it used to flow to a field, not directly into this ditch. So we want to thank you for your time and consideration. And if you have any questions for us, we would be happy to help. I've been on the other side of this. I've been on Centerville City Council, and I'm on the Planning and Zoning Committee. So I'm familiar with how things work in this. We did not hire separate engineers, but I also know that Centerville and Lionel have a lot of water problems, and sometimes the best laid plans don't exactly work out. And it's hard to know where we go for help in the future when this would become a problem in the next 5 or 10 years or 15 years as we plan to stay here. So thank you very much for your time.
Yes, thank you. And we'll try to address it as we go here. Patrick, do you want to lead and then maybe go to the engineers, or how did?
Sure, certainly. Yeah, Board of Managers. So as Linda Vickers mentioned here, the early plan set that we received did show that there would be a physical connection from the developer's property here to the Vickers property into the private ditch. It was a concern that we raised with the applicant and kind of worked through it. The proposal that's brought forth today, this is regarding the stormwater pond that's in the northwest part of the proposed development. It will be outletting onto that same property. It will not be outletting directly onto the Vickers property. They've also implemented an energy dissipator at that outlet on the developer's property. As you can see within the board packet that is on page 29, you can see that they have proposed 3 stormwater ponds for the project. They will be treating 100% of the project area, and you can see that the rates that do go west to the private ditch have been reduced as well from the existing condition. As for the long-term condition, we do have, as we do for all of our Rule C applications, there is the requirement for, that maintenance of the stormwater facilities that are proposed. That will require the landowner to maintain those facilities, make sure that they're functioning and doesn't cause an issue with the Vickers property here. I don't know if there's anything else that I kind of needed to touch on for that. I guess I could have Houston Engineering kind of chime in as well for kind of that drainage to the west.
Chris?
Sure. So it's important to note that the applicant is meeting the district rules. They're meeting the rules for rate control. As Patrick mentioned, in fact, they're decreasing the rate anywhere between 10 to 20% for the 2, 10, and 100-year events going off to the west. The applicant did add to their plans a stilling basin, which is essentially a little mini pond that is at the outlet of their culvert. They have a culvert in the northwest corner of the property that is where they're retaining the water before it goes off to the west. Then there's a pipe outlet from that pond that goes into that little stilling basin, as we call it. And it's the purpose of a stilling basin is to, instead of having the water go off in a point source or a narrow neck direction, it actually spreads the flow out. So that's going to mimic the flow more closely to what currently occurs on the landscape, rather than have it directed into a single location as you would have coming right out of a pipe. So that is one of the things that the applicant has done to address the concerns.
Madam President, this is Marcy. It'd be helpful, can someone pop the map up on the screen so I know what you're talking about, Chris?
Yeah, I can do that here.
President Preiner, while
Yes.
Chris is getting that ready, I'd like to make 2 notes. One, the reference to the declaration of maintenance of the facilities on the proposed development site. That is to maintain those to function as they were designed. That it was kind of referenced that they may address the issues that the neighboring landowner has, but that's not directly the case. And it's, again, just to maintain those facilities as they were designed to function. And then a step further, after Chris chimes in on the plan set and such, you may want a little guidance from Attorney Lewis Smith as to your obligations under the law and how to best address the neighbors' concerns.
Let's go back to the map and Chris first. And
Sure,
so
and
let's-
hopefully you all can see this. I know Manager Waller, you won't be able to, of course, but what I have shown here in the center of the screen is the pond that I was referring to, where they are regulating the rate of water coming off of the site. And where my cursor is shown right now here is where the pipe that will be coming out of the pond is. It comes through the berm of the pond, and then it goes off into this little basin right here. Again, it's called a stilling basin or a plunge pool. And the purpose of that, again, is not to control rate further or to provide any additional water quality, but essentially it's simply to spread the flows out before they go off to the west toward the location of that private ditch, which is shown right here where my cursor is, kind of along the edge, the west edge of that power line easement. And they also are including riprap here at the edge of the stilling basin to prevent further erosion of the edge of that basin and to further dissipate those flows before they go off to the west.
President Briner?
Yes, go ahead.
Just to confirm, Chris Otterness, could you confirm that the stilling basin has a broad outlet, if you will? It's not a concentrated area, is that correct?
That is correct. It appears to have a width of roughly 20 feet wide, something along those lines. So it's going to spread that flow out a ways rather than have it concentrated in a 3 or 4 foot wide area.
Can I ask a question? This is Linda Vickers.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So basically, what I don't understand, I understand the numbers on the chart that show that the flow is supposed to be lower than it was. But that flow and that rating was over, I don't know, 1,000 feet, maybe a little less, but something like that. What I don't understand is how you make calculations that change that volume and that flow from a lot of feet to 20 feet, because I know you consider this to be broad, it's not 3 or 4 feet, but 20 feet of area for all that water flow that used to spread out over 1,000 feet seems to me to be a very large change, and that the land in the pathway of that 20 feet is going to get water in a different fashion than it used to over that 1,000 feet. So that's the piece I'm not understanding. I see the changes and I see the pond and the dissipator. I just don't get how that same amount of water can go over a 20-foot area and not impact us differently than it used to.
Chris, I think that'd be you.
Yes. I guess realistically, it's not possible to construct development where you don't have discharge coming off of the development in such a way that it's not going to be concentrated more than what it was prior to the development. It's just not feasible to be able to spread the water out, at over a 1,000-foot wide area to have it dissipate across the landscape. That said, what the applicant is providing is what I would consider to be reasonable and prudent to minimize the potential for damage. And as I indicated, it is meeting the district rules. So we consider what the applicant is doing to be appropriate, consistent with the standard level of care that we would see on a development such as this.
President Briner, Manager Bradley, could I ask a question?
Certainly.
So where is the private ditch located, and so how is the flow to that ditch going to be handled?
Manager Bradley, so the ditch the private ditch is shown flowing to the north here, about where my cursor is. It's roughly, I would guess about maybe 50 feet away from where the outlet of the stilling basin would be. So once the flow goes over the riprap out of this plunge pool or stilling basin, it'll have to travel on order of about 50 or 60 feet, maybe even a little bit further than that before it reaches the ditch here. That again flows to the north here along the east side of, or west side of this power line easement.
Okay, your page 32 of your large packet has a map. I think that helps show the private ditches that it's trying to go towards. Again, those ditches, when they were originally put in, were field ditches. They eventually drained into what used to be Judicial Ditch 47 that goes through us, but of course that was abandoned years ago, and so that's also become private ditch. And all of that's on our land as it travels northwest as well. East, sorry, I said west, east.
Any other board questions? Otherwise, we'll go to Louis. Anybody else? Okay, Louis, your opinion, please. Or John, either one, whichever.
Sorry, I was muted. Madam President, managers, the legal point here is a simple one, which is when an application is presented that fulfills the requirements of your rules, you really don't have a legal basis to deny the application. Ms. Vickers has raised a number of different drainage concerns, and I think we've heard the staff and engineer response to those. I don't know if any of the concerns have not been addressed, but I think the board has a full presentation in which you can consider the application.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Certainly.
And then I'm done.
Sure.
How about the land flow that is going across the easement that's been granted to Excel on that corner, on that border of our property? What requirements, if there's damage somehow in that easement or something changes that impacts Excel's ability to use that utility easement, where does that go back to? Does that go back to the city? Or in other words, I don't want it to come to us that we didn't do what we were supposed to do on that easement because this is clearly going to be impactful across that land. So I guess I was hoping that as part of your requirements and conditions, since Excel was going to have to chime in on the south side at the pond, you would also get their approval on this northwest corner of the property to make sure that they don't have concerns about what's happening over that utility easement that they have there as well. Thank you.
Madam President, this is Manager Wynett. I'm seeing an easement, existing power line easement on the south side. Is that the easement you're south of?
President Preiner, Board of Managers, this is Patrick Hughes again. If Chris Otterness could pull up the sheet again, excuse me, it's shown on the civil plan sheet. There is an 85-foot overhead power line easement, I believe is what Ms. Vickers is referring to. Let's get this here. It runs north-south, so it is both on the Vickers property and the Nadu Acres development property here. If you can zoom in, Chris.
Yeah, and maybe one thing that I can, oops, sorry, maybe one thing I could point out is there are two easements. There is this north-south one here that goes along the west side of that pond we've been discussing, and then there's also a easement that goes diagonally through the property here, which is the one that we have been referring to in the engineer's report requiring concurrence from the power company.
So the other easement wasn't considered in this, or doesn't have to be, or I guess the point is you would like some recognition of that easement also, Mrs. Vickers or Ms. Vickers?
Yes, I would like Excel to also weigh in, just like they're going to weigh in on that south side on the diagonal easement where the second pond is going. I just want their approval on that, so this doesn't come back in the future at some point with a problem over what they consider to be their easement.
President Preiner, this is Administrator Tomczak. I'd like to note, I think the origin of the easement question as it pertains to your engineer's report is in regards to landowner permission, if you will. So we always look for the owner of the land to be the applicant. And here we have a significant shoreline easement, and we're wanting to make sure that interest in this particular property is recognized as to what's going to happen there. The overhead power line easement, the one on the northwest side, Mr. Otterness, if you could confirm, is that on the property or on the adjacent property?
It is on the property and the adjacent property both.
Okay.
One thing I'll notice, if I look under the administrative item 7, we do require that the applicant obtain consent and subordination from Xcel Energy. That's related to the utility easement, and it doesn't specify which one of those. So I think that we could would be definitely under the understanding that since there are two easements on the property, that number 7 would apply to both of them.
Madam President, Mrs. Manager Bradley, could we modify number 7 to refer to plural, that ensure that the utility easements plural?
Any reason not, Louis?
No, that makes sense to me.
We can do that at this time. Okay. Well, I agree with that. I think that's a good idea. I don't even know if maybe it could even be described more precisely and not just easements, easement located here and easement located there. Just to have it in the record here. Any problem with that?
No, it's Chris and Patrick, I trust you know how to identify those two.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could certainly work to add some additional descriptive language in there to identify both.
Okay, that'd be good. Any other comments or questions?
It might be good to have the language now. This is Administrator Tomczak. Chris, I don't know if you can work on the fly there to have it so it's clear in the motion and the amendment to the ER.
Okay, so what I would propose then for item 7 is in the second sentence of number 7, applicant must ensure that the utility easements, including both the easement along the west side of the property and the easement running diagonally through the property, will not conflict with the maintenance obligation. Applicant must obtain a consent and subordination from Xcel Energy or other documentation acceptable to the district.
Any comments? Any other comments? Okay, well then we're gonna a motion.
Madam President, I move that we conditionally approve the pending receipt of changes for permit 20-002, consistent with the report we have in our packet as amended by Chris Otterness.
The district engineer. Yep. Okay, any other comment? We need a second, please.
Manager Wagman, second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? It'll be a roll call. Waller?
Yes.
Wynant?
Yes.
Bradley?
Yes.
Wageman?
Yes.
And Reiner, yes. So motion passes. Okay, thank you. Next thing on the agenda will be open mic. Anybody out there that we don't know that wants to speak to the open mic?
Nope. I'll say thank you very much for your time and consideration, and we'll leave your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yep. Okay, with that, we're going to recess. It's our regular meeting, reconvening the continued hearing of the Morel petition for the sole purpose of considering the draft findings and order.
Pat,
Yes.
can we ask who's on the phone? Because I think somebody else came into the meeting.
Anybody else come into the meeting on the phone line?
Jeff Morrell.
Jeff
Yep.
Morrell.
Okay, thank you, John.
It's Jeremy Deere with Frederickson and Byron.
Jeremy.
Anybody else?
If you have problems hearing or you want to speak, just shout out, okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. It's just good when there's one person talking at a time. Otherwise,
Exactly.
it gets pretty challenging. Thank you.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Anybody got me, but Jim Arch is here.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Madam President, this is Marcy. There's a Jay McNeely on. Is that one of our staff?
No, I'm a listener. I'm a resident of Lino Lakes.
Okay, and you've noted that, Teresa. Thank you.
Okay, so we're in the middle now. We're going to start our public hearing. I believe John Cole will be handling this. Am I right?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. As the board is aware, this particular agenda item has a fairly long history, starting with a petition from Mr. Morrell in late 2016, an initial engineer's report that was filed in July of June of 2017, some extended discussions with Mr. Morrell and his technical consultants between 2017 and 2019, culminating in an initial public hearing on the petition in December of 2019, and then a series of continuances for the consideration and development of findings of fact and an order in the matter, and also the consideration of some alternative damage analyses as proposed by Mr. Morrell and his consultants. Ultimately, the hearing was continued to today's date solely for the purpose of the consideration of a set of draft findings and an order in the matter. I will note that the board did close the public comment period at the close of the hearing on in December 11th of 2019. And so it would be at the board's discretion at this point if you wanted to take any further comment on the matter. But the sole item before the board is the adoption of the findings of fact and order as has been placed and then subsequently modified as of Monday in the packet with some edits that the board discussed at its workshop on Monday.
Everybody have their materials with them? Any comments, questions? Have those listening received this material? Teresa, can you ask if everybody's received? Yeah.
Jeremy, Jeff, Jim, do you want to respond?
Well, Jim is still here. I guess what you have said is pretty much the way it is with me. I'd like to have Jeremy discuss a little bit.
Exactly. Jeremy?
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. We have reviewed the petition. We appreciate the board's consideration of the memo that we provided. Deliberations. The matter of wetland being determined at a later date, we're fine with that. The big point we want to make here is, and there was some recognition in the draft findings about working with Mr. Morrell in the future on the variance for the floodplain mitigation. His real concern here is that the property is not going to be developable, and having the ability to get a variance in the future, it will go a long way for helping him actually achieve some financial results from his property. I know he's still not happy about everything that's happened to his property, but we do need to continue to move forward, and we're going to need the board's cooperation in the future. Jeff, did you want to say anything? Well, I better make short. Yeah, I'm disappointed with the flooding of my land. It personally, it's just with that teepee. It should never been allowed. It changed my whole land.
Okay. Anything else? With that, we're going to need a motion.
Madam President, John Kolb.
Mm-hmm.
If I could, just in response to Mr. Deere's comments, I know the board went to great lengths to try to articulate its opinion on how it would handle a variance for the floodplain fill. But as you know, the board had to be very cautious about a predetermined outcome. And so I would just encourage Mr. Morrell and his team to look very closely at how you have articulated the board's opinion about how it would treat a variance application, and to not hesitate or delay in filing such an application subsequent to this order.
Any further comments? No more comments? Okay. We'll need a motion.
Madam President, this is Manager Bradley. I'd like to move, I haven't got a resolution number. The resolution in our packets, it begins on page 35. For the petition of Morrell under MnSTAT sections 103E.715 repair, 103E.075 obstruction for a portion of branch 1 of ACD 10-22-32.
And Madam President, Manager Bradley, if I could get you to just amend that to its resolution 2020-15. And if your motion could reflect the corrected version that was supplemented in your packet on Monday.
It'd be on page 10, I believe.
Madam President, amending friendly amendments, obviously that's resolutions number is 2020-15, and the materials received by the managers were amended at our workshop and subsequently, and I'm referring, of course, to the corrected version that we're considering today.
Need a second?
Manager, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll do a roll call. Waller?
Yes.
Wynant?
Yes.
Bradley?
Yes.
Wiegman?
Yes.
And I say yes, so the motion will pass and we'll move that forward. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, gentlemen, for participating. Okay, we're going to go back to our regular meeting and consider the adoption of the 2020 Watershed Management Plan, page 45.
President Steiner,
Yes.
this is Administrator Tomczak. We did amend the agenda and add the public drainage system hearing announcement, if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Board of Managers, as you know, under the governor's order and the emergency declaration, the district recognized we're working under alternative means for our meetings. We have consulted with your counsel, Mr. Kolb, in regards to holding these public hearings as they pertain to public drainage systems. Here specifically, I'm referencing Ramsey County Ditch 4 and the records correction. That is the one where we've had some discussion about Roseville's intent to put it in a pipe. We do intend to hold that by alternative means on May 11th, which is after your board workshop in the evening. And that we have augmented the process under the circumstance of COVID-19, specifically extending the notice period to 4 weeks so that it gives time for folks to comment to us, obtain materials from our website, or for us to mail them out and such. And then we would also envision a longer period for any comment once the hearing has taken place. So that's our, in regards to both of them, but RCD 4, again, records correction, May 11th in the evening. And we'll get that out and get you a specific time and the team's invite, et cetera. The other is Anoka County Ditch 5362. That was a petition for realignment and abandonment, which you had previously noticed, and then we was interrupted, if you will, by the COVID-19 situation. That we're intending to be on the regular meeting of May 13th, again, as part of your regular board meeting. In both of those timeframes are reflective of staff's understanding, and we did work with our engineer and council to kind of make a little chart of how we typically do these. So alignment with a regular meeting, and if it's one that we'd like to, would typically have in the area and have folks come in the evening, we do so. But there you go. That's how we're kind of following it. And those are the two meetings. And then if Council Kolb would like to make any comment, because we can't really forecast the future. I don't know if the governor will extend his current order or not. Certainly my gut would tell me that's likely to occur, but should it be how we might proceed in the future as conditions change, as in regards to renoticing or that type of thing.
Madam President, if I may, John Kolb.
Yes.
The situation that you find yourself in is not unlike the situation that other governmental entities find themselves in. You have ongoing proceedings and procedures that you are wanting to continue. Obviously, you want to lend a level of predictability to applicants and petitioners, but at the same time, you want to fulfill your obligations to the public to give them an adequate forum by which they can review and comment on proposed actions of the district. So in this case, we're in rather uncharted territory with regard to statutorily required hearings under the conditions of the emergency declaration. What has been recommended and discussed, and there's been more extensive discussion among groups like the Association of Minnesota Counties and League of Minnesota Cities about how to continue with this, is to reset anything that was previously scheduled and then provide an extended level of public review and comment. And so what Nick has described to you in our process here really is a different type of notice, a different type of access to the materials well in advance of the hearing, a means by which they can participate remotely in the hearing if they want, or a means and the time by which they can access all of the materials, either paper, electronically, or however they want it, by contacting the district, have an opportunity to digest those materials, and then an extended written comment period after the actual virtual hearing. And so by doing that, we think we have met the due process expectations of statute, while still not endangering anyone's health, safety, and welfare, and keeping with the spirit of the restrictions that are in the emergency declaration. Now, as Nick has pointed out, the emergency declaration could be lifted. I'm doubtful that the emergency declaration will be lifted by May 13th, but it might. If it is, you can always reset or reconsider how you want to address these hearings. You could open it up and have it in person, either with or without additional notice. But I will also note that your resolution adopting the alternative meeting and hearing format went back to when the board president decides that is now feasible and prudent to have those in-person hearings again. So you do have a few different safety mechanisms in there. But the biggest issue here is, do we feel comfortable, and does the board feel comfortable that we can provide adequate participative opportunity for the public in these hearings, given that we are not giving them an in-person opportunity to comment, but we're giving them expanded virtual and external opportunities to review the material and comment?
Okay, so one question, John, then, can we, even if the rules change, could we do it as we say it, as we've already, if we post it for the video, can we just do it that way, even if the rules change?
It's difficult to answer that question because statute 13D.021 is very specific as to the conditions upon which you can invoke this alternative meeting format process. And I think we would probably have to address it when it occurred to see the adequacy of our procedure. And then I think we would have, I can't say until we know that. Sure. I am doubtful that if the conditions disappear that invoke our authorities under 13D.021, that it would be prudent to continue under those conditions. So the best I can tell you is I think we need to address that if and when it happens.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anybody have any trouble with these dates that Nick presented?
What were they again?
It's May 11th in the evening, I believe.
Correct.
And then the next one was May 13th during a regular board meeting. Do we need a motion for that, or can we just accept it? Or how would you like that done?
President Preiner, I was Administrator Tomczak here. I was just intending as informational to the board as to the situation and how it might play out for us.
Okay, well then we'll move forward. Now we're to the adoption of 2020. That's Kyle.
Madam President, members of the board, again, happy to report that Bowser has approved the district's 2020 watershed management plan. So today we have a resolution drafted for you that would adopt that plan officially, effective today. Again, we are looking at the draft that was released on December 11th, 2019, after that Board of Managers meeting that was released for 90-day state agency review. There are no changes to that document after that state agency review. Again, staff is recommending approval of the draft resolution. I also had a note in my memo that now that we're basically near the end of this, we can report that we're the whole project of creating this watershed management plan is running approximately $50,000 below budget. So I think that's kudos to everyone involved, including Houston Engineering. They've been very efficient in working on all of this, and together with John Cole as well. And we're very happy with the outcomes, and just want to congratulate you on, what was it, 2 years plus of work. So with that, take any questions you have, but I would recommend approval.
I'd also like
Madam
to.
President,
Oh, go ahead.
Madam President, if I may jump in there, I want to give a lot of credit to Kyle for that coming in under budget. I see that 50,000 under as being mostly on Kyle's part and other district staff. You know, the work that they put in saved us lots of work all the way around. So kudos to them. That the credit should go to them for that.
Madam President, this is Manager Wynant. I intend to move this resolution, resolution. I do have a question though. If there's some, I see in your memo, Kyle, you're recognizing the Board of Managers for hard work. There are also 2 other groups, I think, if I recall, I mean, as well as many partners, but our technical committee as well as the Citizens Advisory Committee put in a load of work on this. So I don't know, Madam President, if that belongs in the resolution or just should be acknowledged some way.
Well, we could add it to the resolution now if we can find, if you want to put it in and then make the motion, because that wouldn't be much change. It's just adding it.
Right. I don't see in the resolution that there's a recognition of the internal work that went on. So Kyle or Nick, do you have a suggestion there? You've got that 158 written comments were submitted by 15 agencies and the many agencies.
Madam President, if I may, the resolution is brief and to the point. Is really pretty much what's required to adopt the plan. I did not include any appreciative or congratulatory language in the resolution itself.
Yeah,
certainly Marcy's point is absolutely correct, though. There are a lot of folks who've put a lot of work into this plan and getting us to this point, and whether that's through this resolution or through additional motion of the board, it would be appropriate to recognize those folks.
I would like to recognize them, and I would also like the CAC to see this letter from the Board of Soil and Water. I think it's just good for them to know they participated in that.
Well, let me do this. This is Manager Wynant. I will move the resolution as presented, and we can get a second and move that, and then maybe there's a motion to recognize these folks. And because I can see how if you start listing one, there'd be one after another. So, Madam President, I would move the adoption of Resolution 2020-13. I guess I read, how much of this do I actually read for the record?
Just read the, go ahead.
I was just going to say, go to the final, therefore be it resolved that adopts for implementation the Rice Creek water management.
Okay, therefore be it resolved that the Rice Creek Watershed District Board of Managers adopts for implementation the Rice Creek Watershed District Water Management Plan dated December 10th, 2019 in accordance with Minnesota Statute 103B 231 Subdivision 10.
And I will second that, Manager Bradley.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. It'll be a roll call. Waller?
Madam President, I'm going to vote no on this issue this morning. This water management plan doesn't solve the problem in Washington County. Historically, Washington County stormwater conveyance system was in very good repair and had been maintained. But since the authority of the district took over in the very early 70s, we have been at our deferred for many, many years. We took a court case from the city of Hugo to sue. Actually, and not until the death of one of the members of the board, the president of the board at the time in the early 2000s, were we able to have funding put into maintaining the drainage system in Washington County. And this plan doesn't provide a certainty for the budget annual funding into those stormwater conveyance systems. And Washington County, which contributes about 1/5 or 20%, it wouldn't be unreasonable to have the majority of that money, say 18%, dedicated annually towards the systems in the county. The 1992 plan changed significantly how things were done. It went back to a point where the county, the watersheds were then taxed independently again, like the counties had done before. It went away from ad valorem taxes. And that is what we're doing now in this plan. There are going to be 12 special taxing districts, which is similar to what was before the watershed district took over. And so I prefer to see that some kind of dedication put in to be sure that there's a certainty of dollars that are going to be spent, that are collected from Washington County, be spent in Washington County.
Okay, that's a nay. Wynant.
Yes.
Bradley.
Yes.
Wageman.
Yeah.
And Priner, yes. Okay, we finally have passed our watershed management plan. And thank you again, Kyle, for all your hard work. Okay, the next thing is consider truly.
President Kleiner?
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt. Administrator Tomczak, to Manager Wynant's thought, did you want to have a motion or just maybe a suggestion of a letter signed by the board president to the CAC and what other members you had in mind that participated in the development of the watershed management plan?
Marcy, how would you like to do it?
Thank you. I think a letter would be most appropriate. And Kyle, if I recall, it was the CAC as well as you had a very robust technical committee that you worked with.
That is correct, Manager Wynant. And we have contact information for everybody who was involved in that, so it would not be difficult to distribute a letter to those folks.
Okay, I'm fine with the letter, Madam President, if the rest of the board feels that that is adequate.
Okay.
Madam President, this is Manager Bradley. As a suggestion, the letter might want to certainly reference Bowser's letter and or attach Bowser's letter, which is a nice congratulatory piece for all our efforts.
Okay. Oh, I got somebody knocking at my door. Can somebody, Mike, you want to take this?
Okay.
Right back.
So with that, Nick, I think we can move forward.
Very good. Managers, we'll take that as direction to staff. We will ask the president to sign the letter representing the board's majority position on the adoption of the watershed management plan. We take a slight pause here. Hopefully,
No, she asked me to step in.
Oh, very well. So if I might, Manager Bradley, the next item on the agenda then is, if I could read it, consider curly leaf pondweed cost share on bald eagle, silver, Rochdale, and Centerville Lakes. Matt Koshin is going to represent that matter to you. It does start on page 56 of your packets. Matt, are you with us?
I am here, yes.
Can't hear you. Louder.
I'll move closer to the computer. Is that better?
Can you hear him, Steve?
Just barely.
Just barely. A little bit.
I will speak up. I will speak up then.
Matt, are you driving?
Yes, I'm going to look ahead into the windshield every now and then, but you'll have a mostly undivided attention. No, I am parked. I'm safe. You can hear me okay, I hope?
Do you have a volume control on that computer?
I do, and I'm unmuted.
Apologize for that.
How was that? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I can, yep.
Okay, good. So as Nick said, beginning on page 57 of your packet is a memo from me that outlines our participation in curly-leaf pondweed management. So curly-leaf pondweed is an invasive species that is linked to water quality degradation, which is why we participate directly in the management of it. We've been doing so for upwards of almost 20 years now, maybe 17, 18 years, something like that. We partner with a number of lakes on a cost share basis. So the Watershed District pays for roughly half. The lake group pays for the other half. This year we were fortunate to get just shy of $12,000 in DNR grant dollars to help offset some of our costs and some of the costs of the homeowners. I'll note that that DNR program has not been consistent through the years. It's kind of come and gone, as you'll see in the memo in the table. But this year it was back, and so we got some of those dollars. As in past years, we get several quotes from vendors to do the work and generally go with the low quote. The costs that are presented in the memo are conservative. We expect the cost to be lower than that, so those are a worst case scenario. And as I note there, we pay for all upfront costs and then are reimbursed by the DNR and Lakeshore homeowners. So that's an overview. Many of the managers have seen this information before, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board? Any questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Madam President,
Yes.
Mr. Waller, I know we've been doing this program for some 20 years, but we don't have the cities really come in here and partner with us on this. And this is a program that will improve the lake quality, which is really in the MS4 permitted cities. And so in the future, I'd like to see us have the cities kind of pick up some more of this cost in there. That'd be a significant help. Guys, as I see this, this is kind of a mission creep issue, and it's not directly a problem. We don't have impaired water in our MS4 permit because they just have to do with the ditches. They don't have to do with the lake. So I'd like to see the cities pick up some of the responsibility here, since it's their MS4 we're improving.
Madam President, this is Manager Bradley. So I'm not as familiar with the lakes other than Bald Eagle, but you know, it's not an MS4 issue. It's a water quality issue, which is equal to our other obligations. We spent millions of dollars with alum. What we're trying to do is prevent the loss of that investment that we've made for water quality. And there are, you know, which city is going to pay for Bald Eagle? Bald Eagle is a regional lake. It's used by more fishermen off my lake than on our lake. This is a great program that we do at a low cost because it's involved the landowners share in the cost who are most benefited. So I like it the way it is. I can't imagine trying to go to a city and saying to the city, you should pay for curly leaf and Bald Eagle.
President Preiner?
Yes, go ahead.
President Preiner, this is Administrator Tomczak, and I'm going to ask Matt Koshin to chime in here. My understanding in regards to the district's role in those impaired water bodies and addressing those water quality issues is that the district is, quote unquote, a collaborator, even though we are not directly the responsible party. I say that cautiously, and I'm looking for Matt to maybe just clarify how the state views us in that regard. Obviously, the district will take its actions as it sees fit, but it might be good background for this situation.
Yeah, Board of Managers, Nick, I would say that's mostly correct. Occasionally, or I should say in some of our TMDLs, the district is listed as MS4, which makes us, regulated responsibility for that TMDL. In most of the TMDLs, we're not listed as a regulated MS4, but that question is a little bit, doesn't really play a role in curly leaf pondweed management because curly leaf pondweed contributes to internal phosphorus loading in a lake, which is not regulated by the MS4 program and not really part of the TMDL regulations.
Okay.
Manager Bradley, excuse me, I have no problem with this program at all. But the question, who is the main person or the main entity responsible for this? When you get to the top of the function, who's ultimately responsible?
Maybe Matt can answer.
Yep. So I guess there is no one ultimately responsible for curly leaf pondweed management. It is an invasive species. The DNR does have a grant program to help offset costs for management, but there is no one entity that is responsible for it. So, for example, in other watersheds, some watershed districts have cost share programs like we do for curly leaf pondweed management. Some do not. Sometimes counties play a role. Sometimes there's no government agency who plays any role, and 100% of the cost falls to the landowner. So it really varies by region.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Madam President,
Yes.
my camera on here, Kyle Axtell here still. One thing I would add, this particular program is something that, given that we've just adopted the 2020 Watershed Management Plan, this was a program that was specifically considered in that Watershed Management Plan with a budget and is in our district's 2020 budget and presumed will be continuing forward, if the board wishes. But this was a program that we just spent a couple of years talking about its importance, and so I just wanted to make that note.
Hey,
Madam President, this is Manager Wynett. I move to authorize the administrator to enter into, can you hear me? Enter into agreements with the Rochelle, Centerville, and Silver Lake cooperators to cost share on curly leaf pondweed treatment.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Roll call. Waller?
Yes.
Wynant?
Yes.
Bradley?
Yes.
Wageman?
Yes.
And Priner, yes. Okay, and then we have a second one.
Yes, this is Manager Wynett. I again would move to authorize the administrator to enter into professional service agreements for herbicide treatment of curly leaf pondweed on Rochelle, Bald Eagle, Centerville, Silver Lake, with the total contract cost not to exceed $35,000.
Manager Bradley seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Any further discussion? Roll call. Waller?
Yes.
Wynant?
Yes.
Bradley?
Yes.
Wageman?
Yes.
And Priner, yes. So motion passes. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, we're to the Green Corps.
Yes, President Priner, this is in regards to the Minnesota Green Corps host site application. We did have a fair amount of discussion about this at our recent workshop on the 6th. I see that Marcus Green is online. Should you have any additional questions, here we have a resolution that just recognizes the district, the board, as the authority for the district, recognizes the intent to host the site. And Marcus, I believe you're maybe going to be entering into interviews soon in regards to this, if there's any other background you'd like to offer the managers.
For sure. So the requirements of the application were the written application that was submitted on March 18th. And then we're here today for the board resolution that says that the board is in support of the project. And then I would also give Nick the ability to sign off on that. Last week when I was talking with the PCA about some of the implications of COVID-19, they did let us know that we were entering the interview stage. And at 1 o'clock today, we will be interviewing for the Green Corps member. So pretty exciting.
Okay, any questions for Marcus or Nick? If not, we'll go to the resolution.
Madam President, Manager Bradley, I move resolution 2020-14, authorizing the host site agreement on the Minnesota Green Corps, approving the host site agreement with the Minnesota Pollution Control Authority agency, and authorizes the administrator to sign the agreement on behalf of the district.
This is Manager Wynett. I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? It'll be a roll call the way it's written on our papers. Bradley?
Yes.
Reiner, yes. Wageman?
Yes.
Waller?
Yes.
And Wynant.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.
Check register. Steve?
Madam President, this is Manager Whiteman. I move to approve the check register dated April 8th, 2020 in the amount of $48,371.21 prepared by Red Path and Company. Second.
Manager Bradley seconds that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call. Waller?
Yes.
Wynant?
Yes.
Bradley?
Yes.
Wageman?
Yes.
And Kreiner? Yes. Motion passes. All right. Anything questions for the engineer?
Madam President, I'll just note one thing here, one update for our Judicial Ditch 3 repair project. We've been working with the contractor to review submittals from them and execute contract documents. They have indicated to date that they're planning to begin their work at the beginning of June for the project, and they're going to try to work hard to move forward with that project through to completion following that. So that's about when we could probably expect to start seeing equipment going out there with the tree removal activities beginning in June.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Chris?
Madam President, this is Manager Wynett. Chris, is construction proceeding, let me ask this, is COVID-19 and the stay-at-home orders limiting any of the work that is planned on this sheet?
Manager Wynett, so far I have not seen that anything would, from the governor's order, would limit this construction. Most of these activities would be considered to be necessary activities that would be exempt from the order. And from my understanding, these contractors in general have been continuing on with their work, again, following the guidelines from the CDC and others.
President Preiner.
Yes, go ahead.
If I could advance on that response to the question comment. And I think Lewis Smith might join us on that. So the contractors that we're engaging are independently identifying the work as essential, although the district's taken a position on its public drainage systems, et cetera. And further, the district, at a minimum, is looking to receive comment, or a statement, I should say, from the contractor that they will be able to perform the work or intend to perform the work to the best of their ability, consistent with social distancing and the other best management practices in light of COVID. So there is some structure there, but no disagreement with what Chris had shared.
Thank you, Nick. I was hoping to hear that there was some kind of recognition by the contractors that they were adhering to the CDC regulations or recommendations.
Yes.
did you want anybody else to comment on that, or everybody's understood?
This is Lewis Smith. I think that's all pretty clear.
Yeah.
We just want to go through that additional step to have the contractors affirmatively recognize that they're comfortable proceeding with the work and can comply with the guidelines.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much any of the outdoor people. I know the landscapers and everybody are out doing it now, so everybody's moving forward that's outside. Okay, anything else? Manager update, Mr. Waller.
Nothing.
Wynant.
I have nothing.
Bradley.
Madam President, I apologize. Steve Wagaman on the check register. Can I ask a question, please, just for information purposes? You've got 2 bills from Xcel Energy that we paid very small amounts for telecommunications. I'm not aware of having a telecommunications service from Xcel Energy. Maybe Nick knows.
I have trouble. I missed half of your question. I'm sorry. Can you repeat it?
Okay. I'm sorry for this. Page 63 of our package shows, and probably Teresa knows better than anybody, 2 bills paid to Xcel Energy for telecommunications. And Teresa, what's that for?
One is for Hanson Park for the iron enhanced sand filter, the pumping. And the other one is for the carp barriers, the low voltage.
Thank you.
Yeah, and they'll fluctuate now in the summer because they'll be used.
Okay, that makes sense.
You back on track, President Priner. Thank you for that. I have nothing.
Wagaman, anything, comments?
Yes. We just had our yearly audit done by Redpath and Company, and I did participate in that. And I would like to report that we had a completely clean audit with no findings again. I think that is directly attributable to the great work and conscientiousness of the involved staff, because I think it's pretty amazing considering the how technical the work they're doing is that they have to put in for the audit. So I think it's fantastic. I've been on here 8 years as the treasurer, and they've had a perfect audit every year with no findings that I can remember ever since I've been on the board. So that's pretty awesome.
Well, thank you. Thank the
Madam
staff.
President, this is Manager Wynant. Thank you, Steve, for pointing that out. Yes, those kind of audits without any findings are more and more rare. So congratulations to Teresa, Nick, and her team, their team.
All right, and as far as comments, the only thing I have left to say is Happy Easter to everybody. And
President Priner?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. As we're drawing to a conclusion, as administrator, I'd like to make a few notes.
Okay.
The other day, we had discussion regarding RCD4 in the placement of the pipe in our discussion of the MOA, the agreement with Roseville. And we had a little bit of discussion regarding the Watershed Management District and the assignment of charges. We did a generalized guesstimate of what those amounts might be for a parcel, or a residential parcel. However, at this time, I'm thinking it's best. I intend to enter into a task order with Houston Engineering, where we will pull together the parcels, the detailed information you need, so that the next time the agreement comes around, you'll have that information available to you and how those costs may be allocated out across the board. I don't believe that's premature here, that eventually we will be doing work, and that will not be wasted effort, if you will. I don't know if Mr. Otterness has anything to add on that.
Chris?
Well, I don't have anything to add. As Nick indicated, it seems to be an effort that won't be wasted and will provide insight for helping you make your decision on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. President Preiner, Tom Scheck again here. I'll just note that Houston Engineering did send out an electronic survey as well as a paper version that we shared with Manager Waller. I think they'd appreciate your efforts to respond and give them some feedback on their work as your consultant. And then I'll note here, Manager Waller had noted the rotation of officers back in January, your 22nd meeting of that month, in some mention of local examples or such. I haven't lost sight of that, but as of yet, we don't have any additional materials. So it's kind of footnoting it here. I don't know if John has anything to add.
John?
Pardon me, I didn't hear what he said.
President Preiner, Manager Waller, back on January 22nd meeting, you had referenced the rotation of the board's officers' positions, and you had a couple of examples from out of state. And I understood you to be suggesting some additional information, but I haven't put it on a workshop or anything like that pending that. So I haven't forgotten, I guess, is my message, and I'll leave it at that.
All right.
Okay. All right, I'll need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Manager Bradley seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Oops, we got to do it as a roll call. Waller.
Yes.
Winant.
Yes.
Bradley.
Yes.
Wagaman.
Yeah.
And Preiner, yes. Thank you, everybody.
Yep.
There's our gavel.
Thank you.
Hey, I got
Thank
used
you.
to it. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.